America's not the government, people. The America is you. It is the Grand fucking Canyon, the Rocky Mountains, the deserts of the Southwest, the Pacific fucking Ocean, the Atlantic fucking Ocean. It is the grandest continent. And what the fuck have you people done? You have turned yourself into sheep, every goddamn one of you.
All right, everybody. Welcome to World Blockchain Roundtable, 5th episode this week. That interview was, oddly enough, a year ago tomorrow with John McAfee. So anyway, this week we have Greg Lang, Sam Johnston, and Austin Roberts from the Rivet team. So thanks for joining. This is good. We have Trey Rutledge from Dragonchain. We have Zach Burks, CEO of Mintable. And we have Satoshi Sean, creator and YouTuber. And I'm Joe Roets, architect, founder of Dragonchain. And let's get straight to topics. So for episode 5, okay, we're going to refresh. So up to date as you guys chose. Okay, this is Jegs. Other than your own projects, what blockchain companies do you feel are helping the adoption race? Who wants to hit that first? And I don't know if you want to list or give the reasons, but whatever you want to do, right?
I could take a first crack at that. I'm a big fan of what MyCrypto's doing. Those guys have a really smart approach to communicating about not just the upside but the risks and the challenges associated with getting people to adopt, and they are spreading kind of a realist message. So you listen to Taylor Monahan speak about this, and she's not afraid to call out ridiculousness that's broken and things that don't work, but also spreading a propensity for truth telling about some of the harsher aspects of tokenomics that keep people sort of grounded. And I think that is a big thing that we need to be doing more of. And I definitely appreciate what they do.
Definitely good for education. I mean, it's almost annoying. If when you sign in on a new machine, you have to walk through okay, I know. I just have to do this thing. So yes, I mean that's actually good though.
Yep,
it's needed, right? If you're going to be doing this stuff. Anybody else? I mean, or any other? I mean,
yeah, I think I got 2 companies, or actually, I guess the second one is kind of a broad group of companies. MetaMask, obviously, MetaMask is doing. It's the gateway for everyone. Everyone's got MetaMask, and one thing you gotta note is that there's never been like a big security issue with MetaMask. They've never been, hacked. They've never had malicious content uploaded on their, extension. And this is something that I think is hard to achieve for how wide of a reach that they have, how large they are, how long they've been around. So you got to give props to MetaMask, right? It's not the best user interface, but for a company that didn't have any monetization until very recently, they've done amazing things, right? Without MetaMask, the crypto space would be pushed back a long time from where it's at now, right? The second thing I think would be layer 2 solutions for Ethereum. I think these guys are helping with adoption, right? By trying to provide something that is useful and that kind of solves a pain point within the Ethereum ecosystem. I guess that would be my 2 cents on that.
I think the point we're at now, when you look at what's pushing adoption, it's really things for stupid people. You just ease of use is a nice word to use, but it's things that anyone can use. Or, there's projects like Munch, which are focused on charity. And, when you start to go down the rabbit hole with blockchain in general, and then crypto, you just learn so much about like just things you never knew, like the amount of waste in charity. the amount of nefarious stuff that, like, you look at what the UN spends to get some aid to these people in this region and how much actually gets there.
Yeah.
And if you put something like that on blockchain, you can see where the warlords take some, all the way through, where the bureaucrats skim some off, or it's all there to see. And then the end result is you can see how much gets to, the people that actually need it, where it's like 10%. And when you start seeing, these things because of the transparency, then you learn about, in the United States, all the different charity organizations that, 10 cents of your dollar ends up going to where it's supposed to go. So much of it goes to, wasteful spending or elaborate offices or huge salaries or conventions for the employees. And most people just want to give their dollar. They don't even think about anything else because they haven't had to think about that. But then when they, once you step into once you see it, because of transparency. So I think things like Munch, which, with, focusing on charity and what they're doing, and then like Divi, just making things one click, simple interface, whoever's working towards, creating something that anyone can use. And when you say anyone, you mean people that just don't care to learn. And that's a problem, but that's society.
That's what I call it, the mom test. We use that at Mintable, but it's the mom test, which is, can my mom use this? My mom's a construction worker, so and you can think just like everyone else's moms here, right? How many of our moms or our mothers are using crypto? And I bet you it's none of them, right? I bet you none of our moms are doing it. And so it's that mom test. If you're building something, I think every crypto blockchain project should consider that. And it's like, if you give this to your mother, are they going to be able to do what you're trying to build and use it? Because if not, then go back to the drawing board, fix it.
Mm-hmm.
From the flip side, though, I want to make a shout out to some of my fellow infrastructure companies. Like, I want to call out Block Native specifically. No, they do not pass the mom test. There is nothing they have that that my mom could use, but they are used by developers so that they can spend less time thinking about, how do I do, this login thing, so that people can log in with their Ledger or their MetaMask or, all the list of things people might want to log in with. Block Native's onboard solution makes that super simple. And so there are those of us, and like my own company, Rivet. I know we're not supposed to be talking about our own projects, but we are named Rivet specifically because we don't want people to think about how often they interact with rivets every day, right? Like, we're behind the scenes. We're the thing that people who are trying to build that thing that passes the mom test uses, but we don't even want the mom to know we're there.
Yeah, you're right. You guys, Block Native, you guys, and all the other infrastructure, developer focused things, they don't have they don't need the mom test. I guess it would be the 16-year-old kid test, right? That'd be, can a 16-year-old kid build on it?
But at the same time, we're trying to be there so that people don't have to think about, they can focus on solving the mom test or passing the mom test rather than thinking about how do we keep our nodes up.
You brought up a good point. Block Native, I would throw them on the list too, because we've been using Block Native for years. And before they had a lot of the products, before they were, we were one of their first projects on Block Native. And those guys are awesome. The team is awesome. The tools that they're building is awesome. And that helps with adoption because it makes my life easier to build more features for consumers.
Yeah, the thing when I said that, like, now I think, because there's so much that has been focused on like that, before, through the whole last boom, there was so much. Joe said this. It was like a lot of people look at the ICO boom as like kind of the scams and all that. But Joe had said to me just a couple of years ago, and it really hit me that when you're looking at it as a developer and as an architect, it was like the Renaissance period. People were just free to think and just throw stuff out there. There were so many ideas just blowing up. I think that was like that time. Now it's like, not how can I make this easier to, so I don't think I'm using blockchain when I log in, but how can I just log in with my face? That's what I think is pushing adoption now. It's absolutely the 16-year-old test.
Yeah, well, I will say anywhere they have, if you have a group, a project that is focusing first on the thing, the utility, the value, whatever it is they're building first, putting the crypto in the background, putting the blockchain in the background, putting the tech in the background. If there is, as there often is and often should be, some incentive or value component to what you're doing, the token itself, the coin itself, whatever it is, if that can be held off as something that a normal person is just, I'm earning these things, I don't care what they are, until I realize that I care what they are. And then all of a sudden, now I'm willing to take the leaps that I've never taken before to figure out the security, things I haven't had to worry about before in holding my own value, where I'm used to a bank holding it or something. That's where I think you're going to get the huge awakening with the everybody in the world, that this could drive a lot of other values in how we're doing things in the world. But and whether it's transparency, whether it's privacy, whatever it is. Now, those projects are pretty few and far between. There are some, that you would have to say, if you're talking about adoption, and it's kind of a hard, I don't know what you guys do, but let's say someone you're working with in the real world asks you about crypto. They know what I do for a living. They're like, hey, what can you I've had people do that. In fact, I had a guy that was, his company was doing some work for us, and he figured out what I did. And he was like, what about Bitcoin? Can you tell me about that? He's interested. And, I had to tell him, well, Coinbase is the easiest. You might go to Gemini, you might look around, see others, but, you have to say those companies too are driving adoption. It is a little more on the speculative side. It is a little more focused on the number go up mechanics, but that's there. And then you also have, I think also any company or any project, I should say, that is primarily focused on the utility of the project, or some utility that is unique in the world. And the funniest thing is that Bitcoin is self-declared not a currency anymore. It's cryptocurrency. It's like, well, it's not a currency. It's a crypto store of value. Okay, so you would have to bring up either Bitcoin Cash or some of the others, which are politically not the favorite thing of a lot of people, but I'm like, that's what they're doing and that's what they're aiming for, and they're continue on it. So I think you got to bring that up as well. Gosh, what else? And I'd like say storage coins, decentralized storage, because that's a particularly valuable utility that still hasn't hit the adoption. I don't think, but it's there, and you're seeing stuff like a library, and you're seeing stuff with library would be another one that I would say is a huge thing, and that and all of the video platforms that are decentralized video platforms, that that's a particularly easy mom test thing. You don't have to know anything about the currency to go watch the videos, and they just happen to have a platform that you don't have to worry about that video that you want to see for whatever reason being taken away. So some of those things I think are there. I'm sure there's a lot more, but
yeah, I think storage and it's weird when you think about this topic, because there's things that would be great for adoption if people knew about them, if more people knew. Because when it comes to with library, people know the problem. Like when I was talking about charities and stuff, people don't know about the problem until there's a scandal, and then it kind of goes away. But people know the problem with YouTube. People know the problem with censorship. People know the problem with a lot of these things, but they don't know that there's these other solutions out there, which is, I guess, goes hand in hand with
time.
The suppression of the
it's time, and it's a matter of how people and it's really weird because of the insane amount of censorship. It's hard to let people know, because if that channel is banned on Facebook, you can't tell people on Facebook.
It goes like hand in hand with each other.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. And and therefore I would say anything that is social media related was prime. We didn't get, I can't talk about our own projects, but I will tell you, timing is everything. And we tried as much as we could to position ourselves with Den for that, because it was obvious that was coming. It was obvious that was coming even in the crypto world. What happened in, around 14, 15. So yeah, it's kind of crazy, but
I think one of the problems with what just created this monster is because, especially you guys. I mean, I'm an idiot, but you guys are the smart guys. In the tech bubble, in the creation and the explosion of the internet and of that tech world, Silicon Valley, whatever you want to call it, the powers that be that regulate and control and all that, they still have no clue. It's forget about blockchain, forget about crypto. They have no clue for basic technology. You can tell whenever they have, Dorsey and
those are the puppets, though.
Yeah, but whenever they have them, the questions, it's just I don't know anything, and I'm trying to ask a question, and
well, that's a whole kabuki thing, though, because
that led to the development, I think, of where kind of how Silicon Valley have so much power because they the only information these people get is from lobbyists and the tech industry itself. So that's kind of a reason they've been able to create this whole little bubble that they rule now, and I think it's part of the reason why we are where we're at. Which goes along with the crappiness of government that the same people are in there for decades. Our president has been in politics longer than I've been alive. That it's part of the issue. If you got newer people in there and different people, smarter people that kind of had learned more, I don't think we'd be in the same place.
So there's a question there, and this is very very technology related. It might not sound like it, but that's a problem that could be solved. Like, I mean, if you have better transparency, then you would have, better, at least the possibility for to have better education. And I don't want to say it like in the schools. I'm talking about just who do I vote for? If I'm, and this is the mom test too. How does a normal person in the world have enough time in their life when they're doing two jobs and when they're paying crazy taxes and when they're just trying to get ahead? If you even invest, you find crypto. Oh my gosh, this is it's not even once in a life, it's a once in a millennium opportunity to get a foot in the door in the world of wealth, right? And along with other things, right? Power, wealth, whatever it might bring. But even then, it's like you're killed with the taxes. Then it's like, oh, this tax, that tax, this tax, that. Oh, every single time you move to something, assumptions, things that they don't even know, all types of stuff like that. How in the world does a normal person then know? And this is assuming that you have a fair and actual real vote system, no fraud. How does that person actually know who to vote for? You generally can't. I mean, it's a very, very arduous process, and civics don't exist anymore. They don't teach people how or why or what to, is, what we've learned over the ages. The history is not taught anymore. You go into politics there. They're teaching things other than history in history class now, or in math class for that matter. So how in the world do you do it? And I think this is the answer. But the crazy thing is that they know this might be the answer. So it's going to be really hard. So how do you get something like transparent voting, or even the civics themselves? If you even just got the congressional votes on chain, along with the tied together with the any campaign contributions, that would be more transparent than what we have. Both of these things, they're totally disconnected. They're hard to follow. They're always out of date. You can't actually know, even though everybody does know that these all of these politicians are paid for. Some of them are puppets, some of them aren't. Anyway,
no, it's the other side that's the puppets who are paid for.
So whenever it comes to educating people and technology being involved in that process, to me, it isn't just what the final decisions were that people need to care about. It's why they got there. Because I don't know if you've ever had the experience and the delight of trying to explain to your grandmother cryptocurrency and what the hell you're doing with your life, but it is a trip. And it is not something that can be done in 5 minutes of your time. It is something that takes multiple conversations to get someone to understand why you're doing what you're doing and all the intricacies or the high level of intricacies that were involved to getting you to where you are. And the same, by extension, is also happening in politics too, in my opinion. Further, one of the things that makes it to where open source projects can succeed are open source projects that have a lot of open discussion about the direction that they're going or about why it is they're taking decisions that they're taking. The Bitcoin community, for example, they just now enacted a new chain on their cryptocurrency that was enacted by a vote for their miners, which was a completely open process that had many discussions, completely open and free. And that took 3 years. So to me, education is not something that can be done whenever it is you just have 10, 30 minutes to set yourself up for, because then you're at the whims of whoever it is that's giving you that 30 minutes of education.
Well, Sam makes, like, I think a point that is just, it's a huge deal in taking that 5 minutes and trying to explain it. I don't know if you guys, we all talk about how important education is, but there's these steps to education in some of these huge things where people have aha moments, but it's not necessarily when you're talking to them. But what you're doing is you're planting the seed and you're giving them that knowledge to where later on, whatever waters it, then that guy can tell you how many people, how many nephews, how many friends, how many people I've just been hit, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, yeah. But then as soon as the stimulus started going and the government just started printing up money, they were like, hey, I get it now. Why are we paying taxes if they could just make money?
And the funny thing, I can tell you, I credit this realization that I had at Disney early on, with us being successful at all in getting it built, getting out the door, all the rest of it, because instead of everyone was pushing us, when we were presenting to give us use cases, and I'm like, I don't want to give you use cases because I want to know the things where this applies that I don't know about. I could tell you, I think you could use it here. And, we made some projects like that, but we would talk about the core, and I'm talking, even talking about trying to boil down the time element, the hash power element things, but not explaining how hash power works. I could even give you an example of a mistake I made once where I had a set of questions for this event. So these are the questions. I'm like, okay, these are all easy. The last one he throws out, how would you explain this to your grandmother? Right. And I was totally stupid. And I tried to explain, the elements of it, the technology, and that's totally the wrong way. And I realized afterwards, grandma doesn't, if you're trying to explain the monetary, grandma doesn't understand how cash works. I
just want to say, look, my grandma bought crypto in 2017. My grandma's like 75, 70, so she's old, man. I got her to buy crypto, right? But you know how she did it is she gave me cash and I bought it and controlled it for her, right? But anyways, just funny story. She has Blockfolio on her phone, and she could barely use Blockfolio. She just knows that I added, the 2 coins that she bought. She had Ethereum and then BAT. She bought BAT early on, and she'd always check in. She'd always text me every once in a while, be like, "Oh, it looks like I'm down $900 or whatever, right?" And this year, because things have gone well, she's like, "Oh, well, I'm up. I've got like $10,000 out of the 2,000 she put in." And I was like, "Do you want it?" I was like, "Do you want to cash out? Do you want to sell it?" And she's like, "Yeah, sell it all." And she didn't, she never believed that she was ever going to see this money again. To her, she was just giving $2,000 to her grandson. And I told her, I was like, "Okay, cool. Give me your bank account and I'll wire you the money." And she goes, "No, it's illegal. You can't do that. We're going to have the FBI knocking on my door." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" I'm going to wire you money. That's not illegal. And she's like, "I just want cash." I'm like, "Grandma, that's illegal." I was like, "I can't just give you cash under the table." But so, I gave her money that she earned. We sold her BAT. I didn't let her sell her E, only her BAT, because BAT, did recently really well. So, yeah, that's just one of those moments where, back in 2017, she thought she's never going to see this money again. She's checked it for years. she knows what they are. She doesn't understand all of how they work. But it was, I don't remember how I convinced her. I think it was one day, multiple hours of me just bugging her, just like, Grandma, give me money. I'll do it for you. Just trust me. You'll make money. And it was never about the I think I would talk about the technology and why this project was good, but she just looked at it like a stock. And she's very well versed in investment. She's done many investments. She's got quite a large stock portfolio. But so she looked at it like that. And I think when you explain it like that to someone as a purely financial investment, they get it, right? That's easy to understand. It's just a different type of investment. But when you start talking about, well, listen, Grandma, because these blocks are all chained together, man, there's this immutability that it just goes over their head, and there's no point to talk about.
Yeah, that kept me out of blockchain. That kept me out of crypto.
People in red pants, people in yellow pants screaming on stage, that type of stuff. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on who you're talking to, right? I mean,
no, that's bad. That's bad no matter. If I was in the insurance industry and some dude did that, like, that's bad. It's like, I wouldn't care. It's like, no matter what, that type of stuff is just, it's like, I want attention. Look at me, look at me, look at me. I'm going to say some words that I've heard somewhere else about blockchain, and maybe I invested, maybe I didn't, whatever it is. It's all bad anyway.
And shout out to all the projects that are trying to make it to where your grandma can use cryptocurrency without you even being involved. That is, I think, the real test. If anybody making a front-end application is this something I would like to put in front of my 80, 90-year-old grandma?
Right.
Joe, thinking about what you just said made me really think, because I've always talked about how with decentralization, there's no one driving the industry because you're not really getting anything from it. It's basically you're doing good for doing good. You're Andreas Antonopoulos. But so many, especially back before they had a lot of projects. The loudest mouths in the space were really there to look at me, I want attention. That's what the whole thing was. A lot of just arrogant personalities.
Well, it's weird because some of the money, I mean, that's what you have to figure out for at a project level. And the problem is, I think at an industry level, I think it's pretty much failed at it, trying to organize that drive. I mean, there's tons of attention that comes with number go up. You get free press, you get mainstream free press with that. Bitcoin is an all-time high, press everywhere, right?
Right.
How do you derive that in a productive and a core way where it's not literally just, this is just tulips? I mean,
right. Well, it's self-defeating, right? Like in a way, because you get this lock-in on the idea of this object, this token, this thing, this abstraction that we've created with technology that technically has some form of digital scarcity because of the way it's secured. But ultimately, it's not really an asset unless we call it that. And it's an asset if you talk about it in terms of number go up, but it's really more of an instrument if you think about it as a thing that can automate legal processes, or if you think about it as a thing that can create, persistent digital artifacts in a virtual space. It might be, some element of whatever the heck you call a piece of digital wall in a virtual space. Like, who knows? Like it's a lot more mutable than asset, and the asset framework kind of locks us into a certain way of thinking about it and talking about it.
And I'm sure you guys at Rivet, I'm sure you do, and I know we do. We have. And this is a point to Trey. I don't know if there's anything that he can say, but like maybe industry wise, but there are a lot of projects that aren't ours that we're working with that are doing things either with carbon tracking or with supply chain, or which is very much behind the scenes. I mean, they don't care. They want nothing of the speculative side of it. They want to use the tech for what it's what is possible. And there's a lot of that going on. And when some of those things pop and those are operational in production, some of them might go out there and you won't know that they're running behind the scenes. And it's that is adoption, because then you're talking about, okay, this is something real. It's being provided. To produce some value out of it. And I don't know, I mean, Trey, what industries would you say, at least that we've seen.
The most traction would be just
Yeah.
manufacturing. I've been surprised with how creative they're getting in the use of, NFTs within the supply chain, within that carbon tracking and carbon credits,
Right. Because there's a lot of research, but there's actually, I'm hopeful. I actually had hoped that this would have started happening in 2018, but, and I will say, I actually think that the boom bust actually delayed a lot of the adoption, because you got a lot of attention, but then because there's so much dogma, there's so much religion involved, and there's so much, I talked to the CTO of a very, very large, I think it'd be a Fortune 500, or it might be a Fortune 100 in Seattle, before we released Dragonchain out of Disney. He was super interested in the technology, but he told us right out the gate, no way we're touching it. You know why? Because they went in for they built a prototype with another, probably a Fortune 10 company. It was one of the largest companies in the world. And they were so, let's just say, unimpressed, to say it professionally, with the reaction of the crypto community. They were doing this for the business community and for the financial community. They had a big demonstration at a big conference, and it wouldn't have been the probably the prototype that I would have chosen if it were me for what they were trying to do. But they didn't know, that both companies were pretty new to the tech, right? And they built this thing, and they were just lambasted from the crypto. They had a huge PR situation because everyone was pushing so much hate, and here they were trying to use the tech for a legitimate reason that they saw as a business. We could use this. This is something that maybe, this is a prototype, obviously, and when you get further in, but it was something that frankly was grandma proof. It was something that someone who didn't care about the crypto side wouldn't know how they were doing it, but it was a very unique feature. See, this is good. I didn't expose anything about either of the companies. That was pretty cool, right? But one way or another, I saw that early on. I was like, holy crap.
This is good. I didn't expose anything about XYZ.
Yeah. The fact that they would have been an early adopter, and here we were right there, and we knew them and they trusted us and everything else, but they were not going to touch any of this because of their real experience. And you think about that. So I think it delayed a lot of things. I think we're now seeing some adoption start that would have happened 2 years ago.
I 100% agree with you, but I think it's because of timing. I think that
that was just the whole thing. We talked about this a couple episodes ago. That was literally just because of the community, religious wars, dogmatism.
I think the community itself was not mature enough. I think there's to give a little bit of hope. This takes me back to like my growing up. Growing up, like my mother would take me to France like every weekend. We would go, and I would be so annoyed that she would like take me all over Europe. And I was like, man, Mom, I just want to hang out at the bowling alley this weekend with my friends. She's like, no, we're going to Tuflenheim. And I was just, and now when I look back, I was like, oh my God, what wasted opportunities. I'm like, traveling everywhere, and I'm just like, just ignoring everything because I'm, 13. And I think that's how the crypto space was the last time. I think
you don't think it is
so
now?
Quickly.
A year ago, we posted. This is our project, right? We posted a proposal for the the Reddit contest.
Mm-hmm.
We did that legitimately. We put, I think it was 50 pages or something. We put some effort into it. Said, well, they're not going to choose us, but it's at least good, example of what could be done, and I think they should know about it. So we put it out. We were just, when we had, in fact, the most upvotes of any proposal. And they basically, the Reddit community, I would say the Reddit cryptocurrency, I don't want to say that. The Reddit Ethereum community was so dogmatic about it because we weren't purely Ethereum. Mm-hmm. That it's like, this is, and they were claiming that we were brigading the post, and like, we told our community about a proposal that we put out. I mean, and it's the most ridiculous thing, and it was all religion. And it's like, here's the thing: we love Ethereum. We love Bitcoin, those two things, there are two communities there that are at such odds when they don't need to be. It's a divide and conquer thing. It's crazy. I don't think that we're more mature. I just think that there's more diversity in our dogma now.
It's that
You get whacked, though.
the guy riding the bike, and he puts the stick in the front wheel of the bike, and he's like, "Why is there no scalability? Why are there no adoption?" Because they're talking shit on everyone.
And the real adoption interest for me is I'm wondering if there's anybody really looking into what's going on in El Salvador and all these countries with failing economies and currencies that have been on death spirals, that their people or their governments have been actually legitimately looking into or have backed a cryptocurrency as far as their official currency in their countries or legal tender in their countries. That is some real adoption there. And I know I've read about the El Salvador events, but I've not seen anybody really looking into what adoption in these countries looks like and what adoptions in other countries that have been going through their own financial crises. Also, like that is some real adoption that I've seen very little information about.
Well, I think Sam has made a buttload of really good points, but that is another one, and it goes along with what everyone's been saying about adoption. In the United States, we have led for so long, and we're not leading here. We're not. We're just not. And what's happening is that necessity is what's leading adoption, like in El Salvador, like where you have to have these things.
But are they doing it right?
Your election is so corrupt that you have to have blockchain in it, that it comes in, and then those examples will be pointed out, and then we will jump on the bandwagon. But I think that's what's just so weird, that the United States or the Western world in general is not leading when it comes to this. But where necessity is where adoption is taking place, and the success of it is going to bring adoption everywhere else.
Didn't El Salvador set up a geothermal mining rig or something like
That's
that?
Another thing. They're like, oh, there's this huge problem. And they were like, no problem. They like within a week, we can use volcano. Everyone was like, what? But that's it's fair. Like El Salvador, it's a pretty poor country, and they made it legal tender, so everyone has to accept Bitcoin.
Well, but there's my issue. There's my question.
They only have to accept it. I mean, like roadside places, farmers markets. But if you don't have electricity and you don't have the infrastructure, then you're exempt.
Well,
so it's not like a totalitarian thing, but it is kind of pushing it as
they're doing paper wallets. You have to break everything down into paper wallets of fives and just pass those around. So it's just So my question is, why did they? It's driven by dogma, and I love it. Don't get me wrong, but it seems to me, if I had a poor country, I don't already have a huge reserve of Bitcoin, right? That's maybe not the most appropriate model. That it's legal tender now. It doesn't mean it's a reserve currency. I think that at some point you're going to have smaller countries, poorer countries, that if they can, and here's my main point. Bitcoin is beautiful because the supply is known, it's programmatic, it can be predicted. It's a beautiful thing for that reason. And it's very unique in the world as a currency, right? That you have that. Why has no small country decided, you know what? We're going to give up on all of our ability to play games with our people's money. Why not have a currency, maybe backed with Bitcoin, maybe backed with precious metals as well, that has a known release cycle, that is either not inflationary or maybe has some component of planned deflation, but whatever it is, that country is going to become wealthy because they're going to have a system that is not only better than what they have, where unless you're in power, you're not going to ever get wealthy. Instead, would actually create enough enough of an ability to in a stable way create an business and an economy that people will want to do business there. Right.
Well, the reason
are you punking me? Are you punking us, Joe?
They're not going to make as much money with Bitcoin as they would if they have their own central currency.
That's not the reason.
You
guys are joking.
No,
right?
guys, I can speak to this one. This is international organization influence. This is the IMF. This
Yeah,
is the World Bank.
what are you
These
people?
guys are actually pushing them down.
Come on.
Saying,
Yeah, yes, exactly.
right. We've had
Let
no
me
policy.
give you
We've had an
let me say
active
three things.
policy of preventing third world wars
Iran,
for like the last 30 years.
Iraq, Libya. They were our friends. They weren't just we were okay. They were our buddies. In the fact of in the case of Libya, all three of these countries were our buddies, and then said, you know what? We have a lot of gold. We kind of like to back our currency with our own gold or our oil. We have a lot of these assets. In the case of Libya, within 7 days after they said they wanted to do that, the United States declared them an enemy.
Right.
7 days. That's why for a small
It's
country
dangerous.
to come out and
I
say
know.
that, oh my God.
I know.
If you own a business and you try to not take the US dollar, dudes with your local dudes with guns are going to come
there are
country and you
there
try
are
to do that.
political
There's
avenues
a lot
to
of guys
any of those.
with ammo
You
that's going to
could-
come into your country with guns.
They could create a currency with a known and transparent distribution model that is backed by the U.S. dollar, and you could probably eke that through. If that is the concern, why would they not do that?
Well, because they don't want them to have wealth. Like this is literally an international policy, related to this idea that this Malthusian idea that the world's overpopulated. That is popular in
That's
this
true.
set of world traveling, like the Davos set. Like those guys genuinely believe that the human race will not survive on this planet if we don't keep those people from getting wealthy too. It's the most. It's a really arrogant idea because what they don't remember is when all of our countries were pre-developed, and it's an idea that's so far in the past for them that they can't realize that holding down the human condition is in and of itself an act of cruelty. But all of our systems are designed to implement that policy, and they have been for since the 80s, I think.
And I think it's good. I think you want to move to the next topic. I was like, we went really long on that. Didn't intend to, but that was
a good question.
We went well.
We're scaring Joe with this rabbit hole. We want to move on.
I'll stop here. No,
Whoa, okay.
I'm just joking. I'll tell you what, we'll come right back after this, and we'll get to the next topic.
But why, some say, the moon? Why choose this as our goal? And they may well ask, why climb the highest mountain? Why, 35 years ago, fly the Atlantic? We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other thing. Not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills. Because that challenge is one that we're willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone, and one we intend to win. We choose to go to the moon.
All right, we're back. Next topic or question from Juan Esperanza. Outside of development and financial services, what are some likely jobs that will be added from blockchain adoption? What do you guys think about this?
Explainers.
That was such a great commercial, man.
Yes.
It really was, dude. It really was. Just had to say that.
Yes. Thank you. It's been a broadcast TV event, so
Especially after what Greg said, it really hit me hearing Kennedy's voice, and he was talking about since the 80s. It just from that time, before that time, everyone was focused on community and unity. Whether the Second World War was, and that was a good part of it, how the world united and came together as like a one community. Well, mostly one. There was the other side, but but it was like the 80s where everyone talks about greed and selfishness, but it really was the beginning of everyone just looking away from that huge unity of community into just self, and it was good to hear it.
yes, thanks. So I don't know. I agree. I grew up in the 80s, so I remember all that bit where it was that was when things were changing, of course, but anyway, yeah. So I don't know, what do you think? jobs specifically
I
from
mean,
blockchain adoption?
obviously explainers. There's going to be in a high cryptocurrency based world, there's going to be a lot of different implementations and a lot of different ideas floating around for how to do XYZ. We ourselves, none of us can keep up with everything that's going on.
No.
And if there's any big decisions to be making at any company, for any business, for any design, having someone there that just follows what is going on, the latest news with these currencies that are just popping up every single second is
Yeah,
going
sort
to
of
be
a subject matter expert role.
Yeah, can I highlight something? Because I totally agree. I think probably our most difficult task in doing what we did with our project to date easily has been communications. It's easily, how do I explain? And it's one thing is you have tons of noise because there's so much going on, right? So how do I get out that here is a different way to do this that I haven't thought of? And that's why I get so annoyed at the dogma, right? Because that makes it really hard to get anything out. And it's like, I would prefer, okay, ignore it if you want, dislike it if you want, but don't be religious about it, right? I mean, it's a competition. It's literally these are ideas. And I had this interview early on where I can't remember, it was a press conference. It was like a press conference where they were asking questions in Asia, and it was in Tokyo, I believe, and they had interpreter up there because it was all Japanese, or at least mostly. There was other Asian countries there as well, and it was really interesting because they did. It's one of my first instances where I had to follow through. Okay, you have to say whatever you're doing, but do not go too long. But leave the interpreter some time to say this. So speak slowly, say one thing at a time, kind of let them talk, and keep going that way. And that was already a difficult transition for me because I just talk, right? And so I had to, do this, and I was okay at it, but it was super interesting because not that side of it. The interesting part was multiple times during this session, they would pause me.
That didn't just happen.
Were, 2 or 3, and they're writing down. They didn't have a word. It wasn't. They did not have a word.
Joe, when you said they paused me, you froze. I mean, perfectly.
Oh shoot, sorry.
It was hilarious.
So they would pause me. They would say, wait, and they would basically get, sometimes they had some paper there and they were writing something out because they were trying to figure out what is the word or set of words that describes that single word that Joe just said. And there were multiple things that I would say that weren't Dragonchain specific semantics. It wasn't like something out of our architecture document. It was a general concept. And they did not have a word for it. And so that was really interesting to me because this is going to be a lot harder than I thought, right? This is something where, you bring in new concepts, and the entire blockchain world is full of this, and then you bring in DeFi, and it's further and further. And some of the problem too is when they map existing semantics to a new concept, it's actually a disservice, I think. Because then people misunderstand it and people think, oh, it's that. And it's like, it's not really that. It's really this, but that's the word they're using for some reason.
Yeah, I should probably let Greg carry his rant on that. But, you see things like in the early days of computers, they took, a piece of paper and they put it on the screen, right? And it was still 8.5 by 11. And they put it on the screen. And then eventually somebody realized, actually we don't really need those page breaks, and it's okay if the words don't wrap in the same place on everybody's screen. But it took a while to get there because even if the developers who built the software realized you didn't need that, the people who were using the software needed something that they could translate from what they know to what's on the screen. And, I think you did need that kind of intermediate step of putting the piece of paper on the screen in order for people to be comfortable with, okay, maybe we don't need the same margins and page breaks.
Right. But it especially becomes important in official documents that get revised publicly, right? Like if you're talking legislation, one of the biggest challenges that we had when we worked with legislatures was that they would need to preserve this concept of the amendment says on page 3, paragraph 7, line 8, strike and replace. Like, how do you replace that without having the reference to the page? You need a whole new metaphor, but that means actively asking the people who are politically elected to change the way that they spoke about it dramatically in front of a chamber of people when it was showtime. Because, like, to this day, I maintain that U.S. politics is way more of a stage show than it is an actual public decision-making body. Like, they make their decisions in private and then reenact it very quickly, and they get very good at that.
Well, this is a technology problem. I was in a startup where we had tech that it was around the way that you map different concepts within documents to, so that you can pull more info out of them. And we had this feature that you could actually selectively redact stuff. We put it in there for reasons that, okay, if I share this document with this team, I don't want them to see this part because they can't see it. But I want them to see the rest of the document. And so the way things were mapped, you could basically redact it and it would be automatic because, these concepts are not shared to that group or whatever. And, we showed this to a higher up at an organization that does a lot of redactions publicly. That one, you can probably guess which one it is. And the funniest thing to me it's like, oh, I want to know more about this or anything else. It was literally, oh, but can we still show the black marks? I'm like, no, that's the whole point. You don't want people to know that it's redacted if you're redacting. The fact that there are black marks there is because that was the only tech available. If I have a document that I have to literally release, I'm going to black out those lines, right? The UFOs. It's like, okay, can't see any of this, document, whatever else. And it's just like, that's just a technology thing. I think people want to see the same thing they already understand. So they feel safe in saying, okay, we could use this, this new capability. It's just funny. It's funny to me when you don't realize the new capability, totally eliminates the need for that thing.
At the same time, there's like an element of, at some point you have to shove a little bit because, like, if we hadn't evolved our metaphors, we would have tried to turn paper into something you chisel on, right? Like, I once did this presentation where I showed like what would have happened if the Babylonian Empire had persisted into the digital age, and I showed a Babylonian document viewer scrolling down a stone tablet to read the Code of Hammurabi, and it looks ridiculous in a browser, but like after a while you have to shove, otherwise people don't move.
I have another funny one that's the same thing. It's like, what if we maintained the technology flow with Jacquard's loom, right? The very first programmable machine that theoretically, and I think, and this is crazy, right? But if you wanted to, you could make a monitor display that would literally be just a freaking loom, a loom weaving itself for every frame.
That would actually be pretty cool.
You could do that. And it's just an hilarious thought that, it's like, yeah, that technology could actually make a display. Anyway.
Yeah, a Jacquard display control unit. That's neat.
But yeah, tying this back to blockchain and cryptocurrencies. I mean, like if you think about what is a cryptocurrency wallet, right? Like that, a wallet just has your keys. It's really more of a keychain than a wallet. It doesn't have anything in it. It just gives you access to the boxes that things are locked in, essentially. But that is a metaphor that gets very confusing for the users. So thinking of it more like a wallet or a bank account is something that's easier for the users to grasp. This is like okay, I can take this wallet. I don't actually have my wallet on me right now, but I can pull out these cards and do things with them. The money's in my wallet. But I think it's a very useful metaphor. I think eventually, as users get more used to this idea, we will probably shift to other metaphors that are closer to the metal and perhaps expose some things that you wouldn't do in something that uses the wallet analogy, but that takes time, and I think it's really.
I think the same thing though, that is an example perfect example of what I was talking about, where I think that's actually a net negative, that analogy, because we get customers coming in thinking they need a wallet, and we're like, you don't need a wallet. You need key management. You need to be, because there's nothing that you're going to say this will go away. You have the ability that the user is not going to
think that was
lose
the
something.
best example, because that's like one of the last things that it's still weird to me. And like you said, you need key management. That's where you lose people. But the fact that you can have your hardware wallet, and that's something someone thinks I could steal this hardware wallet, and then when you tell somebody there's nothing on this wallet, there's nothing here. There's no crypto in this wallet. And then when you tell people you move crypto into your wallet, but it's just a key. Everything, that's when you really step back. That was one of the last things that really hit me, that there is nothing here. This is just a key. Everything's on the blockchain. This is just your way in. So, but that was one of the last metaphors that really hit me, a couple of years ago. I was like, there is nothing on this. There is nothing on this wallet. This isn't really a wallet. Why am I calling it that? But it that was one of the perfect points, man. That was a great point.
And to me, this sounds like a lot of discussions I could imagine have happened whenever it is that banks started digitalizing their storage of their own values. Whenever they first probably started that process, they went from actually having vaults full of money, vaults full of gold, vaults full of XYZ, and they now have a server somewhere with a bunch of ones and zeros on it. There's no money there. There's nothing tangible there. There's just a representation of value that they say that they have and that they've tracked that other people agree on.
Right.
I agree. All right.
It's the metaphors, man. Like the metaphors were the world's first ever usability enhancement, right?
Yeah. And so I'm going to cut it so we can actually say we were in under an hour this week, which would be first time, I think. So I'm going to do that if you guys are okay. If anybody has any last thoughts on jobs that would be created, I think it's across the board. I think it's what you should look at it is which, and you might look at what opportunity could I position myself for, that, what job might be out there. Sure. But I think more than anything, this is or at least it should be, this industry should be basically seen as a driver of wealth creation, right? That's what I would see it as. So anything that would apply then for a job,
right,
managing that, helping build something on it, but it's across the board. It's every industry, I think, just like software,
Right.
So. And
I think that, just real quick to toss in my 2 cents, the way to think about it isn't so much in the format of job. Job was, a construct, a metaphor created to lock people into ideas about what they might do. And it's centralized around companies, that are centralized around industries, that are centralized around this hierarchy of thing we call planned economics, right?
Yeah.
Crypto's designed to make it so that whatever you love to do, you can get value out of by doing it, and you're not defined by that. Like, don't look for a job, look for a passion, and if somebody's built it already, there's a way to get paid to do it.
Yep.
And if there hasn't, then you've got yourself an entrepreneurial idea. So you're
that's not opening up a whole new discussion.
That's an excellent though, I think, in the end. We're gonna leave now. Join us again next week. We have a big update to how we're gonna do some of this stuff with the hosts and with the questioners or the people who provide topics. So some really good things coming there. We'll describe it all at the beginning of the show next week. And make sure you watch that. And I guess the big thing is go and vote on which topics you want to see us talk about, and add some if there's something missing. It'll be on den.social in the cryptocurrency layer, I think, or at least the announcement will point to where it will be in next week. I'm not sure if it'll be there or not, but either way, we will figure it out. Thanks a bunch. Thanks everybody for joining. Yeah, you can stick around after, talk about anything for next week, and see you then.
Take care.
Thanks, everyone.
Goodbye, John.
The first chapters one. The first relay from the high tower. The master link at the genesis of the never-ending chain. The moment a single empty canvas meets a singular master stroke. There is no one thing. Because now, There are many, because soon, there will be more. Because one is ever the beginning. Like the first link in an infinite chain, or the first rivet in the tallest skyscraper. The masterstroke is found in the masterpiece. What will you begin?